And something is happening right now that hasn't happened in a long time. Before the Oval Office existed, before the invention of the car or the airplane, before Donald Trump's grandparents immigrated to America legally from Europe, in 1892, Grover Cleveland became the first person ever to win the presidency, lose, then come back and win it again 4 years later. But that changed on Tuesday night. Old Grover has got some company now. And for the first time in 132 years, we have another president-elect president, which means two very important things. The first, the world has at least some idea what Donald Trump is going to look like when he does take over in the Oval Office. They know his leadership style because he's already been there. But the second might be even more important. And I touched on this last night during my monologue, but Donald Trump is never running for re-election again, which is something none of us, no one alive on the planet today has ever seen before. A president taking office and not immediately thinking about his re-election 4 years down the road. And that is a really powerful political weapon. In 2020, Joe Biden claimed he'd be a bridge candidate to a new generation of leaders, and that lie probably changed history. Listen.
Look, I view myself as a bridge, not as anything else. There's an entire generation of leaders you saw stand behind me. They are the future of this country.
Democrats lost on Tuesday because Kamala never should have been there in the first place. And if Joe kept that promise to really be a bridge to a new generation of leaders, maybe Kamala is the nominee, maybe she's not. But Democrats will struggle to try and answer that question forever. What if? What if Joe Biden really did make a one-term pledge and let Democrats pick their nominee? Either way, Joe Biden was a bridge candidate. He was a bridge right back to Donald Trump. And now the man the media and Kamala herself have called Hitler for the past 2 months is doing a lot of really un-Hitlery stuff. Donald Trump is ending wars instead of starting them. According to the Wall Street Journal, over 1 million people have died or been injured in Ukraine. That is a stunning number. By far the most deadly war in Europe since the Second World War. And when was the last time that Joe or Kamala picked up the phone to talk to Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, the man with the largest nuclear arsenal on the planet? It has been over 2.5 years. Think about that, 2.5 years. It doesn't matter what you think about the war in Ukraine or Vladimir Putin. That is not leadership. It's the opposite. It's negligence, impotence, arrogance. It's a riverboat gamble with the future of the planet. So what happens 2 days after the American people elect Hitler? Well, wouldn't you know it, just hours after Trump won, Vladimir Putin, the guy that Joe Biden hasn't talked to in over 2 years, put out a statement saying that he's ready to talk to Donald Trump about ending the war in Ukraine. Isn't that interesting? What timing? I'm no fan of Putin, and sure, it could be total BS. But then you read what Putin said, and clearly something has shifted dramatically since Tuesday. Quote, "People show who they are in extraordinary circumstances. This is where a person reveals himself, and he showed himself, in my opinion, in a very correct manner, courageously, like a man." That was Vladimir Putin on Donald Trump yesterday describing what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, the assassination attempt. That right there is the power of leadership. Ronald Reagan famously called it peace through strength. I call it peace through Trump. The rest of the world was so shaken by Trump winning back the White House that the president of Russia is very clearly trying to kiss Trump's you-know-what, because the world seems to realize that the party is over. There is clearly a new sheriff in town. Take a look at how the Israeli equivalent of the Today Show reacted to the news that Trump won on Wednesday morning.
תודה גם לכם שאתם מצטרפים אלינו, ותודה לכם שאתם פה, ותודה גם לכם שאתם פה, תודה גם לכם מאחורי המצלמה. למה הם שם? למה הם מאחורי המצלמה? או שאין מקום, או שהם אנוסים, בהייטק, בישיבות וכל הדברים האלה. אין לי מושג, גבירותיי ורבותיי. כן, תן לי, אני לא שומע את המוזיקה.
You ever seen Australian media, by the way? It seems like media everywhere but the U.S. is having a lot of fun. I'd love to be a part of that broadcast right there. By the way, they are celebrating the election of a foreign leader. Let that sink in. It sounds a whole lot like that threat to democracy is saving our democracy and maybe the world. On Tuesday night, Newsmax made the call that Donald Trump won at 1:22 Eastern Standard Time. That was less than 3 days ago, about 67 hours ago. And since that time, The geopolitical situation has suddenly shifted across the globe. Hamas is suddenly calling for an end to the war in Gaza. Newsweek, Hamas calls for an immediate end to the war after Trump election win. The Chicago Star, Trump win sparks Hamas plea for immediate end to war. Reuters, Palestinians dismayed by Trump's win, leaders urge peace. That right there is peace through Trump. And while the world realigns around the coming Trump presidency, the media, the legacy media, not us, they're still trying to come to grips with what happened on Tuesday and what we've been predicting for months. CBS, NBC, ABC, MSNBC, CNN, they just don't matter anymore.
You've always been sort of the leading edge of where media is going with Politico, now with Axios. You understand the environment so well. How do Democrats, and frankly, how does legacy media need to change the way it thinks about getting information? I mean, a lot of the voters who went out and voted for Donald Trump, that so many people are wondering what happened here, they're not watching, frankly, this show. They're not reading the New York Times. They're not consuming media that way. And the Trump campaign found those voters where they live. So how do Democrats need to change the way they communicate to voters, if you think that's part of the problem?
For sure. I mean, I think all of us have to come to grips with legacy media is just not as important as it thinks it is.
They said it. I didn't. What's really remarkable, before Trump left the stage in Palm Beach on election night, peace through Trump was already taking effect. The Associated Press the next day, Iran's currency falls to an all-time low as Trump wins the presidency. You think Iran's going to be ready to come to the table and talk now? I'll let you decide at home. But contrast that with the foreign policy record of Joe Biden, Antony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, and Lloyd Austin, who have a combined perfect record. Exactly zero. Not a single foreign policy win in the last 4 years. Nothing, not one. From the Afghan withdrawal right through Tuesday night, all they've done is lose. And while all that was happening, the head of the European Union suddenly says it's time for Europe to buy oil from America again instead of Russia.
We still get a lot of LNG via Russia, from Russia. And why not replace it by American LNG, which is cheaper for us and brings down our energy prices, but is something where we can get into a discussion, also what our trade deficit is concerned. So engage, look at common interest, and then negotiate.
Peace through Trump. And China, they went from Wuhan to wet noodle. Suddenly, China wants to smooth things over with the incoming administration. They don't want tariffs on any of their imports. And now they want to play nice. From Fortune magazine just today, China says it hopes for peaceful coexistence with U.S. as Trump clinches win. CNBC, also today, China urges U.S. cooperation as Trump trade threat looms. All this happened in 3 days. Donald Trump hasn't even made a speech yet. I'm serious. And already the world is changing. It's peace through Trump, not what we've had with Joe and Kamala, which was war through weakness. Ronald Reagan famously said in 1980 that it's morning again in America. Take a listen.
It's morning again in America. Today, more men and women will go to work than ever before in our country's history. With interest rates at about half the record highs of 1980, nearly 2,000 families today will buy new homes, more than at any time in the past 4 years. This afternoon, 6,500 young men and women will be married. And with inflation at less than half of what it was just 4 years ago, they can look forward with confidence to the future. It's morning again in America. And under the leadership of President Reagan, our country is prouder and stronger and better. Why would we ever want to return to where we were less than 4 short years ago?
Yeah, that's real. The Dow topped 44,000 today for the first time in history. It is not morning again in America. America's going to heal. But it is sunset for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and everything their administration have failed to achieve over the last 4 years.